I'm Russ Rapp here talking about non-duality. So what does it mean to be all-knowing? Well, it kind of depends on how you define that. When it comes to uh, the idea of all-knowing, really you try to get to the essence of that idea, but it's still a concept. And so anytime you have words or a definition, things can kind of get lost in translation, especially talking about big topics such as this. And so when a lot of times when you think on a personal level, all-knowing means I can read people's minds, or I know what's going to happen in the future, or I can see something far away. All these different kind of psychic abilities kind of gets intertwined in that definition. And so if I'm all-knowing, I know everything that's going to go on right now, and I know everything that's going to happen. And so there's this kind of sense of power or security in knowing these types of things. But all-knowing it's not really has anything to do with the human mind or knowing information, because essentially what it's really getting at is this idea of being, or who you are, what is everything. And when you talk about knowing, it's this feeling. It's not even really a feeling, it's just see, I'm at a loss for words. So I'm trying to grasp what the idea of all-knowing is, and that's, I guess, a good demonstration of how you can never really know it. You can never really grasp what the all-knowing, the infinite, those types of things, because it's all we can point to. A non-duality points to this idea of enlightenment or the all-knowing, but it can never really know. You can never really grasp it, because once you try to make it something, you try to take everything that is, or nothing that is, and make it something, then it loses. You take just a piece of that, a part of it, and it becomes a concept. It doesn't represent the thing in itself. It's like words don't represent exactly what it's talking about. Like this is a hand, but that's just one little part of what this thing is right here. It's a piece of this, but it's not really the essence of the thing. It's just something that we're calling it. It's words. And that's how it's the idea of enlightenment or all-knowing is, or non-duality is unknowable, because you as a separate self can never really know non-duality. You can kind of bang your head against the wall so many times that you realize that this method is failing, and so it's almost like finding non-duality through faith, but it's not a faith that you have to do something with. I mean, the forgiveness that you have faith towards is already there. And so another way to look at it is, anytime you talk about knowing something, there's always someone doing that knowing. And so, like, if I want to be all-knowing and be part of this all-knowingness, you want to know something about something else. So you want to know the other. So it's another duality of self and other when you talk about ownership of all-knowing. And so the way you can kind of really pinpoint your error in thinking is you have to realize that if it's a verb, if it's an action, if it's I'm knowing something about something else, I'm knowing, it's a verb, then it infers that there's a subject. Because ultimately, like Paul Hederman talks about, he doesn't call it the self, the separate self. It's more it's selfing. It's something we do. It's a verb. It's an action. And so when there's always constant motion. Nothing ever stops for a moment. Essentially, we're always in motion. And so that's where there's really no clear identification of self. It's kind of like the wave-particle duality in physics. So there's once you try to point to something, it's always moving. You know, we're spinning on this earth, we're traveling through space, our cells, everything is always constantly moving. Even if we think there's stillness, it's always in constant motion. And so that's where, once you try to point your finger at this is what non-duality is, this is what it means to be all-knowing, it's not there. So keep that in mind. If you're verbing, if you're thinking about, you know, doing some action with this knowledge, information, you're coming from a human perspective, which is normal. That's how the brain works. But you'll never find what you're looking for. That's the key. So, peace.